everybody, Suzanne Kellner-Zinck, Efficiency. I'm just here to talk to you very seriously about what it took for me to finally get the help I needed in mental health way back in 1989. Because it wasn't easy. And I wasn't really thinking about it, quite frankly. But I was in a really, really depressed state. There was a lot of crap that was going down in my family after my dad passed away. And it caused some problems. And I have to really credit my ex, who was my husband at the time, for doing something really loving and caring, quite frankly. What he did was he took down the hotline number, phone number, for the suicide hotline that she had gotten off the television while he was watching television one night, and just put it down on the coffee table and said, when you're ready, give them a call. Now, I didn't talk to him about my problems. It was just obvious. I was really unhappy. I was going through a really hard time. And I lost my father when I was 23 years old. I wasn't expecting it. Nobody was. He died of a stroke. Although there were some indicators, if you had any understand, about what transient ischemic strokes are, TIAs as they call them. You would understand because this person certainly did change quite a bit in terms of how he had interacted with my mom, which I saw when I visited them the previous February. And he died in March 25th, 1985. So this is a really long time ago now. And I was really close to my dad in a lot of ways. My whole childhood I wasn't. I was rather intimidated by him. He was a really smart guy. He graduated Phi Beta Kappa, third in his class at a Tufts dental school. And he was an excellent dentist. Not because I say so, but because his colleagues would talk about it. When I would go with my dad for lunches during the time that I worked with him, or we'd meet up with his colleagues and other folks who were in the healthcare profession. In any case, that's what it took for me to go finally get psychiatric help. And it was a long go, let me tell you. I was in psychiatric care for 14, 15 years. And the first few psychiatrists I saw didn't know what the hell they were doing for all different reasons. I was lucky because the psychologist, who was really my case manager as well as my psychologist, made sure that I was taken under the care of at least two of those folks for various reasons and put into the hands of somebody else. But the third person was really bad because I continuously complained about being totally over-medicated on the lithium. They gave me real high dose. I found out later, after I terminated my services with the group program for manic depressives. That's what it was known then. The term for bipolar didn't exist yet. When I was chemically stabilized on lithium, but unfortunately the lithium, after, 13, 14, 15 years of being on that crap, it started slowing down my kidneys, and I was only lucky enough to find that out because I had a Korean coworker at a customer service rep job that I was holding at that time as I was just beginning my hypnosis practice, who looked at my nails as I had my nails kind of over the side of over the top of the cubicle. She said, "What's wrong with your fingernails, Suzanne?" In her accent. It was all those years ago. That was like in 2000. I remember it like it was today. And thank God she did say that, because that's what got me to ask my psychiatrist at the time if this had something to do with something we needed to check out. And she did have me run a 24-hour creatinine level of my urine, and that's when we saw that the kidneys were starting to slow down. So she discontinued it immediately, and within a month I got rid of the manic depression bipolar 2 in 5 minutes of timeline therapy. It's how James told me exactly what I needed to do. He was the developer of timeline therapy, and I was super lucky because I was followed for 10 months by my psychiatrist. Just to make sure everything is okay. It was a tiny dose of mood stabilizers that I was on Lamictal at that time, but still, you want to make sure that things are going okay. And I did go through some difficult times during those 10 months, and everything was fine. And I've never really looked back since then. So it took a lot for me to get mental health care. And I was really, other than my mom, who was in and out of mental health care forever because she had borderline personality disorder and generalized anxiety. And when she was in the nursing home where she passed away, September 9th, 2017, she was also diagnosed with bipolar disorder. I figured she was a mess. But I was really the first. No, that's not actually true. I'm not the first. But I was the first one who totally healed as a result of getting help in hypnosis and neurolinguistic programming, of which timeline therapy is a part, to not have these problems be a problem ever again in my life. And that was back in Valentine's Day weekend, 2004. And the only reason that happened was because I was very sure I wasn't going to have a leash attached to me to some psychiatrist for the rest of my life to monitor medications I didn't want to be on and to really find a more holistic way of dealing with my health and well-being. But on top of that, I was working in mental health at that time. And one of the things that I was disgusted about was how my clients, residents of the programs in which I was working at the time, were being treated. This was in the early 1990s. The directors treated them like crap. They didn't care what they wanted. They didn't care what they needed. They didn't care about their concerns. They cared nothing about anything. And in one of the places it got really bad, there were like 8 clients who were having major problems. So I wrote a letter to the Department of Mental Health in Boston, Massachusetts, explaining what was going on in the program. And they faxed it over to, I believe it was the owner of the whole corporation that owned the program in which I was working, with my name on the bottom of the page. They promised me they would wipe out. They didn't. They forgot. And that led to a very interesting conference with pretty much everybody in the, upper echelons of the program, a few other counselors, and me, where it was very interesting that one of the mental health counselors, her only problem with what I was raising was this: what are we going to do if we help all the clients heal and they don't need us anymore? I looked at her and I'm like, what, are you absolutely out of your mind? We don't have enough beds for the people who need them. You'll never run out of clients. So insane and so selfish and so short-sighted and so like too many of the mental health providers that I've spoken to, worked with, etc., over the many years. And it's that commentary. But the problem really comes up because they don't get themselves healed before they get into these programs. They're supposed to go through therapy. They're supposed to get supervision while they're learning how to work with their patients. And they're supposed to get supervision as they're working with their patients. But I have found over the years through a few people on CORE and a certain wonderful social worker on LinkedIn ages ago that this isn't happening. So it's a problem. And then they wonder why their patients don't progress. Well, you can't really be in this field and not heal your own stuff and continuously working on yourself, growing and developing as a person, and overcoming the challenges as they come up, and expect anyone to pay you anything to give you care. It's a ridiculous notion. It's really one of a few professions. I would include weather forecasters in that, and maybe stockbrokers, that get paid to fail the clients over and over and over again. Because the reality is I know that while I was living in Boston area, one of the weather forecasters was really cool. He said, the reason that he really loved working in New England was because the weather was really, really hard to figure out. Because of being near the mountains, near the ocean, it made it much more difficult to forecast, which was a challenge and made it more interesting for him as a weather forecaster versus Southern California, where the weather is pretty much the same every day. And that's my point. What it takes to get help is dire situations too often. And I'm here to tell you, don't wait until you get into a situation like I was in. You don't want to have suicidal ideation. You don't want to be living with crazy ups and downs like I was. I did some really crazy crap when I was hypomanic. I was never manic. As I said, they put me on so much lithium that didn't happen, which was a good thing and a bad thing because I was really non-functional on all that lithium until the doses started getting decreased. But we do need to get help, and we need to get help when we're feeling alone, we're feeling really frustrated, we're feeling like we're stuck in our lives, we're feeling anxious, resentful, angry, frustrated, procrastinating a lot, really depressed, or just don't believe that our mind is working the way that it really needs to be working, that something has gone awry from where it was. That's when you really want to get the help before you have a major crisis. Because if you wait until you have a major crisis, you may not be as lucky as I was and actually have a really decent mental health provider as the psychologist. And you may find yourself in a really, really bad situation. That being said, if these people are not listening to you, you're going to have to do like what I did and bring in your spouse or someone close to you to speak on your behalf. Because once you have one of these diagnoses, they don't listen to you so well. And that was a big problem I had with the clients and the way they were treated by the directors of the programs, supported housing programs that I was working in. And it even went to the point of one of the psychiatrists who was working one of my one-on-ones, one of the programs I worked at, was asking me what was going on with the client who was sitting right there. So I told him, why don't you ask him? He's right here. If you need interpretation, I'll give it to you. So crazy, but this is the stuff you run into. On and on and on and on. I landed in hypnosis because I wanted a holistic way to help people without toxic drugs, without, shall we say, making everything a psychopathology, including human emotions that are natural. I actually had a professor in one of my master's programs who shared with me privately, because of the stuff that I was talking about in the program, that she told her psychologist that she employed because she was grieving the loss of her child that she didn't want any DSM diagnosis anywhere on her chart because it didn't apply. And she's correct. It's a natural human emotion to be grieving over the loss of your kid. And it's great that she was getting support. So why does she have to have a damn diagnosis attached to it? It's absolutely insane. Just process and go through it. And actually I've been able to help people overcome this stuff since then, using neurolinguistic programming pretty quickly and effectively in many, many cases of loss. Not only the people close to them, but also in terms of survivor's guilt with people who have had people close to them commit suicide and kill themselves, and they feel bad because they're living and their loved one is now dead, in terms of lost animals, and even with clients who have had lesser capacities to do physical things than they used to do. Most particularly one really special social worker who came to see me because she had to drop 70 pounds, but yet she had a degenerative bone disease. So even swimming became a problem for her, according to her physical therapist. So she had no way to really exercise anymore. And this is a person who loved dancing. So I helped her grieve all of that. And she was, over the period of a year, able to, just with her diet, drop the 70 pounds that was necessary for her health and well-being based on what her doctor was telling her she needed to do. So these things can be dealt with really easily and effectively using the work that I do. And seriously, don't wait for a horrible situation to happen. Don't wait for letters to be written by you or someone who you love talking about wanting to kill themselves because they're really unhappy, or maybe a spouse leaving because they're really unhappy and you know they're unhappy because they're not spending any time with you. Then they're done that too. That's a problem. You have to figure out what's going on. In my case, it was easy. He was cheating on me. He let me know it. So it's not a secret. And that was many years ago now as well. So get on top of these things. Get the help you need. Someone who can work with you. I have actually the calendar for my schedule in the description box below if you want to have a free consultation to see if you're a good match for the work that I do, because I do not listen to people whining. I go through your detailed personal history exactly once. You tell me the story, and then we get down to doing the treatment plan and helping you heal. And after you heal, move on and create the life you want, just like I've been able to do. Because, you can't help someone do something you haven't done yourself. So to all those people who are trying to tell you that they can help you make millions and millions of dollars and they've never done it before, they're full of crap. You cannot help someone do anything you haven't done yourself. You can help people with problems different than yours with research and an understanding, like I do with anorexics and bulimics and sex addicts. Don't have any of those problems. But I learned from my clients how to help them heal. And because I have a little bit of medical education due to a year and a half in nursing school, I did drop out. I hated nursing, but I did learn a lot about anatomy, physiology, nutrition, etc. That really helped me to work with them in a really good way. They're able to heal and move on. In fact, 3 of them, one right after the other, wanted me to create a training, which I did, to help state licensed mental health providers who specialize with anorexia and bulimia treatment to help them help their clients heal. 18-month program, people, based on what they taught me. So if you're one of those folks, free consultation, so we can go over what's entailed with that, so you can learn more about it. It's a really special program, and I was really lucky to have a great professor in my very first course in that program to help me to really put it together the way that I wanted to put it together. Because generally speaking, when people take instructional design and technology, they work for some corporation. There's some little gap in the when the employee comes online to learn something, there's some aspect of the job that they don't have a way to teach them yet. So they learn how to do these little trainings, usually autonomously, meaning you watch a 10-minute video and you take a 10 or 20 question multiple choice quiz, and then you go on to the next topic, and there might be 4 or 5 or 10 videos, whatever it takes to get through it, which is totally different than the hands-on training that I had that was 21 hours done in a weekend with mentorship. I hope that you found this helpful because I really want people to get the help that they need. And I want them to get them before it becomes a crisis, because it's a lot easier to help people heal before it's a crisis. Makes sense, doesn't it? As always, I thank you for spending your time with me. Till next time. Bye-bye.